if I'm leading a team and I say, hey, here are the 3 things that are going well, here are the 2 things that are not, here's some resources for you to kind of address this. Can you get this back to me in a few weeks? Yep, great. Just made that 1 hour meeting 10 minutes. And I think with my directness, that is my gift to you. I'm saving you time. I'm being clear. With someone who is indirect, they need that trust building on the front end.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to Create Magic at Work. Today, Dr. Meliss Crum is joining us. She's an award-winning diversity and inclusion coach, educator, and founder of Mosaic Education Network, a Columbus, Ohio-based consulting firm. Mosaic infuses the arts, self-reflection, research, storytelling, and critical thinking into professional development, community building, and curriculum development. Across the United States, Dr. Crum creates non-judgmental spaces for exploring privileges and beliefs, offering workshops on race history and workplace culture that equip participants to implement inclusive practices. She is a Cornell University certified diversity and inclusion professional and certified executive coach through UC Berkeley. Dr. Crum holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Florida, a master's in African American and African Studies, and a PhD in art administration, education, and policy from Ohio State University. Additionally, she is qualified in the Intercultural Development Inventory and Intercultural Conflict Style Inventory. I popped into Dr. Meliss Crum's breakout session in a virtual conference that we were both attending and that she was presenting. And she was talking about these different communication styles. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm sure we've all heard in the leadership space and studied different communication styles and in different ways. And I was super curious about the one that she was sharing because it sparked something within me where I was like, oh my gosh, in my personal relationships, I think this is what might be happening. And then I was like, you have to be on the show to talk about this with everyone just so we can explore and self-reflect and everything. So Dr. Meliss Crum, welcome to Create Magic at Work, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for popping in to the conference.
Yeah. It was amazing. I was like, oh, I have a little time. And I happened to pop into yours, and lo and behold, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Haven't heard this before. And I think it sparked some really cool conversation. So let's get right into it. I want to just dive into what I want to ask, but I want to make sure that the Create Magic at Work community has some context and understands. But what really has been on my mind since I left that session was you were talking about, and I can't even remember the name, but you were talking about a specific communication style where someone is so passionate that they're using their hands and they're being very direct and they're raising their voice. And it resonated because when I'm very passionate about something and I'm really trying to get my point across, that's the way that I start communicating. Like, you need to hear me. Like, I want to feel like you heard me. And if people could see right now, like my hands are in the air and like I want to feel heard. And something that you mentioned was sometimes using that style causes people to, and I mean, you're going to have to correct me on all this, or it causes people to flee, to go into that flight mode and run off because to them they're triggered. The neuroscience of it is like that fear is coming up and they're feeling unsafe, which I'm like, why are they feeling unsafe? I just need to be heard on my side, right? Using that example, kind of dive into that for us. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, I'll give a little context. So, my work is around helping workplace cultures create a space where everyone thrives. And that means people being aware of what they're bringing into the workplace. So, how are they showing up with their emotional intelligence? How are they showing up with their particular leadership styles? What are their expectations, spoken and unspoken? But the other way is, how do you communicate with your team, with the folks you lead, the folks that you're peers with leadership, etc. And so, one way that I help people have some better understanding and some better awareness around their communication style is through this ICS. And so what I was talking about was an intercultural conflict style. And what it is, it's an assessment for people to kind of get an understanding of where they fall within this kind of quadrant. So it goes from direct to indirect and emotional restraint to emotional expressive. And so, of those four different styles is the engagement style. So that's my style, and that's what I was sharing. So I didn't have time to share all four of those styles. So the engagement is high on directness. They share specifically the way they perceive their strength. I say we, because I am in that style. We think we're being really clear about what the specific issues are. We're letting you know exactly what the problem is. We're letting you know what's great. They're also high in emotional expressiveness. So our voice is going to go up and down. We're going to move our hands. Our body is going to be moving. And so what that style thinks it's saying or thinks it's doing is, one, I'm giving you the gift of clarity. That's where the directness is. So the way you can think about it is, the way I use myself is, if I'm leading a team and I say, hey, here are the three things that are going well, here are the two things that are not, here's some resources for you to kind of address this. Can you get this back to me in a few weeks? Yep, great. Just made that 1 hour meeting 10 minutes. And I think with my directness, that is my gift to you. I'm saving you time. I'm being clear. With someone who is indirect, they need that trust building on the front end. So we don't need that trust building within the conversation. Doesn't mean we don't need trust building. It just doesn't need to happen in the conversation. So for indirect folks, they need the icebreaker at the beginning of the meeting. They need that conversation about how's your dog and how was your vacation. Direct folks, we don't need that. We can talk about that later once we get this report done. Or we can talk about it like at a lunch. But right now in this meeting, we're talking about this report. And so what can happen is those indirect folks can create a story if they don't have high self-awareness and don't have awareness of how they're maybe being dysregulated. So for them, it can be like we're confrontational, we don't care because we didn't ask about them. All we do is focus on the work. And so they can create a whole story around that. Where that starts to get challenging is what the power dynamics can be, and if there isn't clarity around how people are receiving who you are. So for me, if I do this with all my team and then we have 360 review, my team is saying Melissa doesn't care about us. All she doesn't care about what we do. She don't care about us as human beings. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. How I showed you I cared is make this 1 hour meeting 10 minutes. Right. But you wanted the hour meeting. I didn't know that. I didn't know you want us to spend the time doing this. So what I have to do then is say, well, we are the meet in the middle. We can definitely have an icebreaker. We can definitely talk about our weekend, and then we can get to this report. So my 10-minute meeting is now 30 minutes. I'm still not doing an hour meeting. Right. So how do we build that? So that's the direct part. The emotional expressiveness for engagement style, we believe we're showing you that we mean what we say. It's not just through our words, it's through our actions. So when I raise my voice, when I'm using my hands, when I'm expressing this way, it's because I want you to know that I mean what I say. And I think you're getting that communication. I think you understand. That's why I'm raising my voice. It's not necessarily because I'm mad. I mean, I might be, but that might not be it. It's just that I mean what I say. And I think that's the subcontext that you're getting. And part of this communication style is like that isn't clear, but we think it is. And so for someone who is more emotional restraint, they can read us as immature, they can read us as loud and abrasive, they can read us as inconsiderate. And so more emotionally restrained folk find power in being able to, if you will, kind of quiet your expression of emotions. Where for emotionally expressive folks, since we see truth in expression, we might see that as inauthentic or fake. So, for example, if I said to a team member, "You did a really great job. Thank you so much for this report. You're so amazing." For emotional expressive people, like, wait, like, we don't believe you. Like, we don't. Nothing showed me that you meant what you said, right? But for emotionally restrained folk, that might be the most authentic. They really, really meant that. And so what happens, and we can, like the other way around, emotionally expressive people are like, so and so, they keep telling us this, but I don't really believe it. I don't think they care about us at all. Look at how they just talk like this in this monotone, and they just da 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 da. And so part of this work that I do with clients is having you rewrite these narratives about yourself and others and lean into curiosity about what people mean. What do they want me to take from this engagement? And how might I be inserting my experiences into this interaction unfairly?
I was totally just thinking that these are all the stories we're telling ourselves in our head of what's going on, and what would it look like if we paused and questioned what's really true there. And then I have another question for you. So, how does this relate to women? And okay, so I feel like I am the direct communicator. What did you say? The direct, but the one that expressive.
So direct expressive would be engagement.
Direct. Okay. So yeah, the engagement direct. And when I've been communicating, I've had people misconstrue my communication as anger when I feel like I'm just really passionate about a topic, and I'm like, "Why are you accusing?" And then I get like defensive, like, "Why are you accusing me of being angry? I'm just really passionate about this topic." And I'm wondering what your thoughts are in regards to women, because I feel like I've gotten that impression from men a lot more, thinking that I'm angry. And then I get even more angry because then I'm like, why are you trying to shut me up? And then I'm like, I'm really passionate about this and I want to be heard. So how does all of that come into play with all of that? I'm like, I'm not angry. I'm sharing my thoughts. And why are you trying to silence me?
Yes. So there's a few things to keep in mind. I think we have particular stories connected to identities that women are emotional. And then if you add on ethnicity or race on there, that can shift that narrative in a different way. So I think we have to recognize that there are stories in the room. And so that there are stories that are placed on us and there are stories that we are placing on others. That's also part of a greater awareness and emotional intelligence. But this has to happen both ways. So for the guy that's telling you to, to calm down or whatever, and for you. So it's both of us to be aware these stories are in the room with us. I think the second thing is to figure out where can we flex in these moments so that we can still meet the goal. So when I talk to you and the way I show how I want to, that I'm passionate about this thing isn't resonating with you, am I so committed to this delivery style that I end up neglecting the larger goal? Or can I gain a skill to flex in these moments? You get to decide. So some people are like, no, you're just gonna have to deal with how I talk. But I think there's an opportunity to see what does it look like for me to flex in these moments. And it tends to be easier for someone to accept your way of communication that isn't theirs when relationship has been built. So what does it look like for me to flex real hard in the beginning? So I want to talk to you like this, but I'm going to be really measured in my tone, and I have to go like this when I when I'm in those moments because my hands will, so I have to clasp my hands and I'm gonna be really intentional. And then I'm gonna be also intentional about us building some type of rapport. And so I can tell you in these moments when I might not show up in this way, this is how I want you to read me. When I'm talking like this is why I want you to read me. For the other person, their self awareness is, what is she triggering within me that makes me feel like I need to go in protective mode? Because our communication and conflict style stems from something in our past. Now, I tell people I call it couch work. That's a code word for therapy. That means you might have to dig to find out what that is for you. But for many people who are emotionally expressive and direct, they likely grew up in a place or were surrounded by folks that you need to be clear and you need to be big to get your needs met. And so I need to be clear and I need to be big. And if I'm not, my needs don't get met. And that need could be emotional need. It could be for me to eat. It could be whatever it was. For people who are more restrained, then they might have experienced when people show up big, bad things happen. When people show big feelings, bad things happen. And so when you come to them like this, they go back to a place. And so part of that work, again, work on both sides, is recognizing that they're going to a place that you may never know. And if they don't get therapy, they may not even be fully aware of where they're going in that moment, that they feel like they need to flee or freeze or fight. So we have to increase our awareness. And also to the point of, you mentioned, because I have to catch myself in these moments too, when someone is telling me how I feel, why are you angry? And if I know that I grew up in a place that if I'm not clear about my needs and I'm not clear about me, my needs won't get met. You just verified that my needs aren't getting met right now. And that is actually causing me to be upset. Because what I need you to do is understand me. What I need you to do is know that I mean this. And because you've mislabeled me angry, that takes me to a place. What happens when you're misread? What happens when you're indirect? Your needs don't get met. And now you're telling me my needs aren't getting met. And whatever feeling that I'm going to that happened wherever point in my life, what happens when my needs don't get met? That just showed up right now. And so part of my work has to be, ooh, I just went to a place. Let me not actually get angry, even though they're telling me I'm angry and I'm not. Let me not actually get angry. And me realize that I'm now going to a place just like I sent them to a place.
Hey everyone, Amy here. Let's talk about work realities for a second. Whether you're dealing with a tough boss, struggling with team miscommunication, feeling stuck in decision making, let's be real, work drama exists and it's exhausting, but it doesn't have to be this way. At Create Magic at Work, we help leaders like you cut through the chaos, build next level communication skills, and make better, faster decisions without the stress spiral. Whether you're leading a team or just trying to keep your sanity at work, we've got your back. We coach executives and teams like yours to develop interpersonal savvy, drive engagement, and bring your vision and purpose to life so work actually feels energizing again. Imagine that. More engagement, more productivity, less drama. Our executive coaching team has been in your shoes. We've led teams, navigated workplace challenges, and know what it takes to help you succeed and achieve your goals. Real experience, real talk, and real results. If you're thinking, yes, Amy, we need this at my work, then let's talk. Click the link in the show notes and let us help you and your teams become a high-performing, engaged, and productive force of clarity and calm. I'll see you in the Zoom room. Let's throw the stress and drama out the window. Click on the link in the show notes. So good. The realization for me that when you're coming with the big engagement and the directness, that it might be bringing something up within someone else, that something bad is about to happen, really hit me at a new level. So Create Magic at Work is all about human connection and understanding, the book I wrote, the activity book, is all these team building things that people can do before a Zoom meeting to connect. And So I would imagine by what you're saying that helps the indirect person, that helps maybe build rapport with the direct and the indirect person. So then we can understand each other's styles and not think, oh my gosh, I've worked with Amy for 3 years. I know her now. So she's being very engaged and direct. Nothing bad is going to happen right now. Right. But how does that work in the workplace when, I mean, for decades, I have heard the narrative of people need to be very clear on what their job is. People need directness. People need to understand exactly what is expected of them. And just like you said earlier, when you're like the person's thinking I'm giving them a gift because I'm being super direct and only interacting for 10 minutes, I would fall more into that category because in my mind, I'm like, yeah, like you have more time to go home and spend with your family now if we're cutting this quick here. Like I would in my past corporate executive days want to cut things. Let's get this done. Let's keep it moving because then I want a life I want to do outside of this. I don't want this to extend. That's what my brain would be saying. And something that has helped me lately, and I want to hear what you think of this. I don't know if it's right or wrong with my boyfriend. We've been saying, this is what my brain is saying right now when you're making that face. And for some reason, that's been working for us. I don't know why, but because we've, as we all do, we misread some nonverbal cues or all of those things. But for some reason, when you're saying this or when your face is making this is what my brain is saying. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this is what my brain is saying when I'm doing this. So for some reason, that's been working for us lately. So there's two parts there. The first part is let's address this. Yeah, we have to get stuff done. People need to understand what's expected of them, and people need to know what's expected of them in the workplace. And then thoughts on the this is what my brain is saying phrase or lead in.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So best practices would say that leadership should fall more into the discussion style. So discussion is direct and emotionally restrained. So that looks like, hi Amy, we're here to talk about some of the challenges that we've experienced in your role. There's some things that are going really well. We want to talk a little about that and also some of these opportunities for improvement for us to consider as we move forward in this project. Right. So this is, I'm clear, but I'm also very measured in how I talk. Da, da, da. So that is seen more so in the kind of Western corporate world as the most appropriate leadership communication delivery style.
Okay. That sounds so boring. Like, I want to have fun. I want to talk to my colleagues and sorry.
I mean, that's what we're kind of like wrapped into in this culture, right? For better or worse, it is what it is. I think also best practices would say to be direct. So indirect would be like, hey, so there's some things that are happening. There are some things that may or may not be going well. What do you think? Right. So then we have this kind of go back and forth. So we know that that isn't as effective or efficient because now we're trying to read between the lines. So directness is a best practice. The thing that has so many variables is how we do that, how we are direct. And it's not just if we're moving our hands or not, it's also how do we let that person know that we care? How do we let that person know that we're invested in this outcome, that we're invested in them? What does it look like in that directness? Can I say to you, hey, Amy, I'm really here to support you and I really want you to be great? I'm being direct still. I mean, if I mean that, say it if you mean it. Like, and I want you to do well. And I'm actually kind of worried about your performance this last quarter. And I want us to figure out together how you can be successful for the rest of this year. Are you open to creating a plan for us to make sure that you thrive and are successful? I'm still being clear. And I'm not doing a whole lot of passion, but arguably you can hear a little bit of that passion in my voice, that engagement in my voice. But I'm building rapport in my directness. And so I think there's still a skill because I could be direct and be like, Amy, you are like a hot mess right now, and this is looking terrible, and you need to fix it. those are direct. One of them are better than the
Right,
other.
right, right. Well, I mean, because for me, like hearing those different examples, one is sort of, and that's where feedback goes wrong in the workplace because people deliver communication in a way where the person's being or identity feels attacked rather than talking about the task at hand. I think in the first example, you were saying, I want to help you get back on track with this. And I was thinking of a project or something. But in the second example, you said, you are a hot mess. And so that for me, I would, again, I would probably have to dip into defensiveness if somebody said that to me and then I'm not hearing you anymore. And then from a spiritual intelligence lens, that's my work. I have to do to take a breath, think maybe this is about something else. My ego just got triggered. I need to shift back into higher self. How do I do that? What are my tools? So interesting. So interesting. We are like flying through because I'm just like loving this conversation.
Well, I do want to touch on your second thing, though. The second thing you mentioned about like you and your partner and being clear. I think you want to make sure you're communicating your goals on the front end of either of those conversations. So that whether it's the work conversation and I need to be direct about your performance, and I also want to be clear about my investment in you, and also being clear about the goals in that conversation with your partner is like, I know that we're on the same team, and I know there's stories that are coming up within me that have nothing to do with you. So instead of me manufacturing a story about what I think you meant and then me having behaviors that respond to that, I'm going to stop it in mid story creation and tell you what story is being created for me. So when you came in and you threw your shoes in the ground and you slammed the door, I created a story that you were mad that I forgot your lunch and you hate me and I'm the worst person ever and we're breaking up. And then I'm yelling at you back, and not because I created a story about what that meant. And I'm gonna stop mid story and say, this is what's coming up for me. This is a story I'm starting to create, and I need you to help me to rewrite it. That's the goal. I need you to help me rewrite it. So is it true? Is it true that you're mad at me that I didn't bring you your lunch today and we're gonna break up? And he's like, oh no, actually, it had nothing to do with that at all. I had a flat tire and I'm annoyed at my car. And I was like, oh, got it. And so I think being really clear what you're trying to do, because part of these communication styles is that we take for granted or we assume that there's some subtext that's clearly being delivered that's actually not being delivered.
So interesting. I mean, my biggest takeaway today is I marvel at the amount of what we live with within ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves, and the whole world we have created within ourselves and the narratives that we've created within ourselves that probably aren't true. And if we stay curious and start talking to each other about the stories that we're telling ourselves, I think we might be really surprised and we might be really more connected with each other.
100%.
Thank you so much. I loved this conversation. We're already to the point where I'm going to pull a card for everyone from the Create Magic at Work journal prompt card deck. So, this is a message for everyone listening from the universe. No matter when you hear this episode, this is a message for all of us. So, let me shuffle the deck. Okay, what do we got? Oh my gosh, I love this. We haven't gotten this in so long. I use an app that the deck is on. It's called Deckable. We got generosity.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the theme for this conversation and for this episode, and if you're hearing this conversation, this message is for you from the universe. Generosity. I celebrate the success of others, knowing there is plenty for us all. I celebrate the success of others, knowing there is plenty for us all. Melissa, can you share with us some advice on how we can truly give and receive in a balanced way? And I'm really glad this question came up because we didn't even get into boundaries and exhaustion from overgiving, and I wanted to today. So universe is like, here's your question. How can we truly give and receive in a balanced way?
So I think the answer to that is healthy boundaries. And the way I define boundaries is the ability to love myself and you without resentment. And so my yes shouldn't create anxiety or anger within me. My no shouldn't do that either. Right. So, what does it look like for me to love you and me and love in all kinds of ways? um, love you and me, and we still be healthy. And if you can't receive what I need to do to keep myself healthy, so if you can't hear my no and respect my no, you're telling me who you can be to me, who you are to me. And that means someone who's not necessarily centering my well being. And that lets you know where you need to put that person. Also, the boundary setting that I'm working even harder on are the boundaries with myself. I have a habit of abandoning myself. So if I say to you, I'm going to do this thing, come hell or high water, I'm going to do it because I said so. But if I said to myself, I'm going to journal once a day, and I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, I'll do 3 on Friday. But if I told you I was going to do that, I'm going to do it. So what is it about? Why am I abandoning myself? And then when I allow myself to abandon myself, then that means I'm leaving that abandonment opportunity for other people to do that to me because I allow it for myself. So I'm going to allow you to abandon me too. I'm going to allow you to drop the ball too. And so how do I build that up? And part of that work is for me to be flexible about what my commitment to myself can be. So I believe that on Monday, I'm a great mom. If I'm a great mom, I might not be that great of an entrepreneur. On Tuesday, if I might be a great sister, that day I might not be a great daughter. Wednesday, I might be a really great friend, and that means I might not be that great of a neighbor. So, like, I can't be on 10 on all the elements of my life, and I give myself grace for that because that is how I can love myself and others. So, and I communicate that, hey, mom, I can't do this for you because I'm doing this for brother. So, is it okay if we do this on another day? This is communicating. These are my boundaries. And if you don't like that, just let me know what our relationship, what we need to work on. But being able to give myself that grace and then communicate who I want to be to folks and being able to sustain that allows me to let my generosity flow from a full tank.
How do you recommend those of us listening feel like they get resentful at work because they feel like they can't hold a boundary or they can't say no because they've been given a project that they have to work on? Or I see a lot with private clients, they take on others people's work from an empathetic standpoint, and really they're burning themselves out, but they think they're being a really good leader by helping others. How do we hold these boundaries in the workplace when our job or our livelihood might feel like it's on the line?
So I think the first thing is to be clear if it actually is. Now, for some people, it is. If you don't kind of violate these boundaries, and that means you're in a toxic workplace, that whoever's in power is actually threatening your position. And if that's an actual threat, then that takes us to a different place and needing to think through like what needs to be a next step to get out of this space. What I find is that's not most of the situations. Most of the situations, it's my stuff being brought into this dynamic. So I think I have to be a great team member. And how I define being a great team member is whenever you need me, I'm available. But I made that definition. So I got to be clear, where did that come from? So, do I have a story in my history where my worth was connected to my productivity? Do I have an experience, maybe my parents only showed me love when I had great grades? Or I was only seen as valuable when I had some type of, I produced something or a thing or whatever. That's that couch work. All right. But part of this is you're bringing a story, you're bringing a thing into this dynamic that you need to heal. And no amount of project taken on is going to heal that, because this perfectionism comes out of an insecurity wound. And so until that wound is healed, you're going to keep operating out of that. So no matter how many times you take on other people's project, you're still not going to feel like you have reached this pinnacle of great leadership, because you're operating from a wound. You're not operating from strength. And so internally, there's a level of resentment, because you're like, wait a minute, I don't feel better. I don't feel like a better leader. I'm just tired. I'm just tired. So I think there's that. And I think the other thing is we teach people how to treat us. So if you've taught people, oh, if I don't finish this project, then Melissa will do it. Melissa will finish it. Oh, if I didn't read the report before the meeting, it's fine. Melissa will give us all notes. She's read it. She'll make sure, we've taught them that. Now, does that mean they taking advantage of us? Maybe sometimes, but other times we've taught them that's what we do. We taught them we will take on your work. So that means there's a requirement to unteach them. I'm not doing this anymore. This is not how I'm showing up anymore. And if you're dealing with people who are emotionally immature, they cannot receive that boundary. But that is not your problem. They can't receive that. They're emotionally immature. They're expecting you to meet their needs. And you're saying, I'm not meeting this particular need anymore. And if they can't receive that, that's their work. That's not yours. So you can't take that on.
Yeah, of course they're not going to like it because they were benefiting from it. Right? So expect the pushback, or expect maybe some people might not be too happy with that. This was so good. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your work? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so you can come to my website, mosaiceducationnetwork.com. Every 2 weeks, I have stories and tips to share with folks. Also, my website, depending on what kind of organization you are, I share within my services all the different ways I can support your organization and healing and creating a workplace culture where everyone thrives. I can also share a link that specifically lets people know more about my cultural competence, communication, and conflict series, that they can learn a little bit more and see if that makes sense for their organization and leadership development.
Amazing. Yeah, and all of the links to connect with Dr. Melissa Crum will be in the show notes. So feel free to check those out. Dr. Melissa Crum, thank you so much for saying yes to being a guest on Create Magic at Work. I learned so much from you today. Thank you for sending some magic to all of us in the community today.
Thank you.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work, and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.